Hello, stats class. This is Zach Fraysier. I chose the median home prices versus the price for 1 gallon of regular unleaded. Months since January 1994, there's 330. So from there, I got 30 random elements. Came up with these, came up with these. These aren't the same as my sample because I've been updating and playing with this. So, yeah, plug those numbers in that I got, standardized it. Have a lower fence and an upper fence. That's for the outliers. And it's just a function. If it's above the upper fence, below the lower fence. So these are true. This is automated. It's just it's all plug and play. If you put anything in here, put one's going to show up down here. So I chose a class size of 5. It gives me a class width of this. So I have a skewness here. It's not bill shape. It's an asymmetric distribution with a skewness with a right skew. Has 2 outliers over here, and it's skewed. Which measure of center is most relevant? Median, because of the skewness of the distribution. Let's see, the mean is situated between the 14th and 15th value right here, which is pretty close to the center of 30. The median is just above that at 15, between the 15th and 16th. But the median would be more applicable because of skewness. It's single modal. Peaks once, goes down. Which values are closest to the mean? So what I did here is I just chose plus minus 0.3 from 0 of the standardized values. There's less, there's only 3 above here, and then there's what, 10 above? Sorry, there's 3 below, that makes more sense, below the mean, and 10 above the mean, within 0.3. So that just means that there's more values that are closer to the mean that are above the mean than there are that are below the mean. And mention 2 standard deviations from the mean. How does that compare to Chebysky's rule? So here that is pulling numbers from here and here, standard deviation, subtracting, and then adding it in this one. What we come up with, there's nothing on the lower end here, as you can see, but above 2 standard deviations, there's 1 value. So that gives us a 96.67%, which is above the theorem 75%, at least 75% for 2 standard deviations. Confidence interval. Question is, using sample, estimate the average median home price for all months since January 1994 with a 99% confidence interval. I am 99% confident that the mean median home price for all 329 since January 1994 is between 144,376, 195, and 195,573. Play around with this and do 95. That's going to tighten up. We can go 99.99. It's going to 9, and that's going to capture a lot more of the values. But stick with 99. And just to go back, I'll go to the raw data. I did for the population what the actual average for the population was, and that was 186,701, which is within this. The hypothesis test, the question is using the sample test to claim that the majority, over 50% of median home prices since January 1994 is less than 200,000 at the 0.05 level of significance, which is what Mr. Blevins suggested. I would reject the null hypothesis that the proportion of the 330 monthly median home prices since 1994 that are less than 200% is equal to 50%. There's a lot going on there. Less than, equal to, but this is what matters here. 0.5, 0.5. The sample provides evidence that supports a claim that the majority, over 50%, of the 329, I think I put a 0 first there, so we're going to change this to 30. Change that up here too. 330. So there was a 0 from, because it starts in January. And it's from. So 330 monthly median home prices since 1994 is less than 200,000. And that's that. You know, we could play around with this. You could do it at 0.6. Be above that. You know, p-values coming up some, z-values decreasing. You could put it right at 0.8, which is what the sample says. Because the counter, I put an if function in here too. Should have explained this earlier, but there's 24. So all that the p-hat is coming from is the 24 divided by the sample size 30. But if we had the claim of 0.8, you know, z-value would be 0, p-value 0.5. So 0.5. That's what the question is. Over 50% higher. Correlation, I'm going to breeze through this really quickly because I don't want you to grade this, Mr. Blevins. I put in the entire population. I just thought it was interesting. There's a lot of stuff going on in the gas prices, Katrina, hydraulic fractured horizontal wells, and COVID, producers limited production, thinking that people weren't going to be traveling or going to work, and people ended up traveling like all over the place. And gas prices ended up coming up because producers cut supply and demand was actually spiked. And in here for the home values, really the only dip that we saw here was 200,000, right around the subprime loans, housing bubble burst. See, it came down here and then ended up coming back up 200. So there's a lot more variability in the gas prices going on, which, you know, you see it spikes up more than the home prices. They're just kind of more across the field. So one other thing with the hypothesis test, so I wanted to test this. It is actually, for the population, it was actually 61%. So that's right. This is correct. It's above. It is above 0.5. So that concludes my presentation. I look forward to watching your guys' presentation.